Follow me. From the mind of the misfit, quiet like my daddy, but straightforward like my mama. Drink like granddad, smoke sluggies like the other, but granddad feels the guts. Hustler like my uncle JT or cousin Big B. I got big dreams like Jimmy Lee, and my aim is just limit for anything. Keep a job like Uncle Kevin told me. Top notch player like David, and that caddy thing since the 80s. Slab, big corporate thug, and political like Jack. May rest in peace, but I've been talking a lot. See, this hothead wasn't scared to get money nor leave the beats to see. Can't play me like I'm a pawn in the game. Chess, jokes look like Big Kenny and Ski. G like Jarrell, Journey. Trigger happy, getting about my family. Alone like my granny. Lula, chuckling, giggling, hunching my shoulders like my daddy's and the lead. Routed like them Tyson seeds. And spiritual like rewards. A go-getter like Arian, a religious, romantic career like no one, you know, ever. Also like Uno, a soldier's untold story like my bro, T-Bird. And cousin Ray Knocker get aim like Bird. And freak nasty like John and Gene. I can be man, it's respectful, tatted to a different breed. I can't wait till they get a load of me. Draped in luxury, memory and lessons from ancestral pillars, legacy family. We are unapologetic, ain't with a win-rep mentality. We are unapologetic, ain't.
Hey, Mom, good evening.
I can't wait. I can't wait to load of me. I can't wait. I can't wait to load of me. I can't wait. I can't wait to load of me. I can't wait. I can't wait to get a load of me.
Hey, champions, welcome to tonight's edition of the Motivation to Elevation Facebook Live podcast. It's yours truly, Arian Tyson. I am sitting in my office here in St. Louis. Thanks so much to everyone that's watching. And this is really a special podcast for me because literally a year worth of Tuesdays ago today, I launched this podcast. So literally tomorrow will make 1 year to the very day that I launched this podcast. And this podcast it started out with me just wanting to speak from my heart. It started out just as an opportunity for me to sharpen my skills, to be able to provide value to those who watch it, whether it's here on Facebook, whether it's on YouTube, and so on and so forth. And I'm just grateful for the feedback that I have received over the last year from those who have watched live and those who have watched the replay. And there's really been no subject that I haven't touched on or that I have felt uncomfortable touching on. And so, because for me, it really started with me just sharing my story. And so for me now, it's full circle, especially on this particular day. It's full circle. And so tonight, I want to talk to you about the importance of how to go from a mess to a message. Because literally, I am living proof that you all have what it takes to turn your mess into a message. And so if you get value from this, feel free to leave me a comment. Feel free to share this on your Facebook walls once the replay is up, so on and so forth. And so I want to talk to you, and I want to be as honest as possible. It's been a difficult day for me in a lot of different ways. And I had a conversation with an individual whom I have been working with behind the scenes. And he really spoke to my heart. He really spoke to my heart. He really spoke to my spirit. Because my spirit has been heavy all day. And so, he knows why my spirit has been heavy. And he didn't realize the significance of this particular day. And so for me, he felt compelled to pray over me. Now, one thing I've learned because of my own personal relationship with God is that you can't have everybody praying over you, because everybody that says they love you don't. Everybody that says they're rooting for you to succeed or not. There are actually some people that are praying, P-R-E-Y, instead of P-R-A-Y. They're praying on your downfall. And so over the last 2 years, especially over the last year or so, I have seen that come to the forefront, so to speak, where those who said that they support me, when things happened and things went south, so to speak, they were nowhere to be found. They asked no questions. They just assumed a lot of things instead of going to the source and asking questions. And this becomes a problem because we all know that a well-told lie is still a lie. And people will believe a lie faster than they will believe the truth. And so for me, I had to go through a process. I had to go through a process of being able to share my truth and being able to be honest and unapologetic. So when you hop on the podcast now, that intro, that song that you hear is called Unapologetic, because when you get to a point in your life where you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired, what the opinions of people really don't matter anymore. And so it took me a long time to get to that place, to get to that point where I'm at now. But as I look back on what the last year has been since I launched this podcast, I have seen a lot of things happen. I have seen the true colors of a lot of people, And what gets me about it is that you can't trust everybody. That's one of the biggest things that I take from what this last year has been since I launched this podcast. And so I'm just grateful for the things that have been revealed to me. I'm thankful for the snakes in my life. And it was funny because I was watching a Facebook Live of a gentleman that I'm about to partner with and do some things in 2018. And, he was talking about wolves, snakes, and a couple other animals. And it made me think about a chapter in my book, because one of the chapters in my book is entitled Be Thankful for the Snakes in Your Life. And I talk about 5 different type of snakes and how they exhibit the characteristics of several individuals that I have come across in my lifetime. And yet, despite how they move, despite those attributes, there's some reasons, there's some ways we can actually be thankful for them. And so I'm excited to reveal that, and I'm looking forward to the book being released real soon. And so if you have not already done so, make sure you pre-order my book at www.lovemeorhateme.org. Again, that's www.lovemeorhateme.org. And you'll be able to find out what that chapter consists of, and then several other things that I'll talk about. And I just lay it out there. And so with this particular podcast, I want to talk to you about how to turn your mess into a message. As I've looked back over the last year, really over the last 2 years, and I look back on the things that have happened, one thing that I've learned is that when it all boils down to it, how we respond to things says more about us than it does about anyone else. And with that, how you respond determines if your mess is turned into a powerful message. And so I want to share with you a couple things that I believe is of value to you. Really 3 things when it comes to how to heal from your mess and turn that mess into a message. First of all, you have to realize that, and I'm not really trying to quote unquote preach or whatever, but it really is true that all of us have sinned and fall short of God's glory, as the Bible says. And with that, but what I've discovered is the power of the sin is in the secret. And the thing about it is, when we get to a point where we start having secrets and hiding and being ashamed to talk about the things that we go through, our hearts can become wounded. Our spirits can become wounded. And with that, we develop wounds of paralyzing shame, paralyzing fear, and self-loathing. And the thing about it is, we were designed to be set free. You know, God wants us to be set free. And there's even a scripture that talks about how God has rescued us from a domain of darkness. And so I fully began to understand what this darkness looked like. And so I'm so thankful that God has removed me from that place. Because when I think back over where I was last year, when I was preparing to launch this podcast, I was weary, wounded, and angry. Forget weary, wounded, and sad. No, I was weary, wounded, and angry because of several events, a series of events that had happened. And talk about it in the book. And so with that, we have to get to a point where we realize that our mess can either do 2 things. It can strengthen us or it can break us. And I've seen a lot of people encounter mess and they fold under pressure. They encounter mess and they fold like a cheap tit. They encounter mess and they run like cowards do. And the thing is, you cannot run from your troubles. You cannot continue to run from your problems or run whenever issues come up and then expect people to respect you, whether it's in your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's business partners, etc. If you are someone that folds up whenever an issue comes up, nobody is going to truly respect you. Your respect comes when you're able to stay in the game, when you're able to press forward in spite of what it may look like. And so when I found myself in a place last year where I had to learn how to press forward in the process of losing a parent suddenly, that was something that I never saw coming. And my mom and I, we talk about it from time to time because she knows how the death of my father devastated me. It rocked me to my core. And sometimes it's still hard to deal with. Because not only because of the fact that it was so sudden, not only because of the fact that it was so close to my birthday and what have you, but because of the things that happened after it that I never thought would happen. that I never thought in my wildest dreams it would happen. And then finding the strength to be able to move forward, being able to heal even when you don't have your questions answered. And that's something that I had to learn, that you can waste a lot of time waiting on someone to answer the questions that you have, because chances are they're never going to answer them for whatever reason. But what I've learned through through these experiences over the last year plus is that if someone can't tell you how they feel, that hang up is not on you. That is a hang up that's on them. That's a personal problem that they have. And you have to determine how much you're willing to deal with it. But one thing about it is, in order for you to heal, and this is my second point, you have to realize that we all need somebody. We all need somebody that's willing to hear us out. We all need somebody that's willing to be, that we can be vulnerable with, that we can be open and honest with. And I know that that's easier said than done, but it's not impossible, because we all go through things, and keeping that stuff bottled in, it becomes very detrimental. It can affect your spirit. It can affect your health. It can affect your mind when you don't deal with things properly. And it doesn't matter if it's a broken relationship, if it's losing a close relative, or losing a friend or another loved one. If you don't have somebody in your corner that you can be 100 with, if you that you can be honest and unapologetic with, you're doing a detriment to yourself. So the second thing is, we need others in order to heal. And so even going back to the Bible, where the Apostle James, he said that, confess your sins to each other and pray for one another that you may be healed. And we not only need, what I've learned is, we not only need the forgiveness that comes from confessing to God, but also the prayers, the encouragement, and the accountability of others. People are afraid to be held accountable for stuff. And so what they do is they will actually get to the point where they begin to turn people against you, because they don't want to be held accountable for the decisions that they've made. And that's a problem, especially when it comes to the fact that there are some people who are stupid enough to believe the lies instead of going to the source to get confirmation, or believing the well-told lie when they know the character and the integrity of the person that's in question. And that's crazy. And so we got to be careful about that. And then the final thing, that when it all boils down to it, how to turn your mess into a message, after you realize that, first, the power of sin is in the secret, and then after you realize that you actually need someone, that you actually need others, that you actually need people in your corner who you can be open and transparent and honest with, that is not going to judge you, that is not going to look down on you and act like they got it all together, or act like they ain't never done nothing. When you get to that point, you have to realize that finally, God uses most of our areas of weakness. He uses most out of their areas of weakness. I'm a living witness to it. My weakness as a child was speaking. I was diagnosed with lead poisoning at an early age. I was told by doctors that I would end up mentally retarded. And I grew up very introverted. Very introverted. I was a very quiet individual. And I felt like my voice did not matter. I felt like I had nothing substantial to say. And then I learned that when it came to matters of the heart, that's when I stuttered. Like, for example, if there was a girl that I was interested in, and I was normally always the person that approached the person. I remember the first woman I approached. It was a girl at the time because I was a teenager. And, in spite of the fact that I knew them for a long time, so on and so forth, I stuttered so bad, and I can laugh about it now, but I was a mess, especially because of the fact that they didn't feel the same way. But that's happened to the best of us, because everybody is not going to feel the same way that you feel. So that was a hard lesson learned for me. But when I thought about it, I realized that when I did speak, when I finally had the courage to speak, that people listened. So I took that as God used an area of weakness, which was speaking. And also, I hated being in front of the camera. So in order for me to realize that my purpose is bigger than me, I said, I'm gonna get over this. I'm gonna get over myself. And I'm just going to put it out there, because God gives you a gift. He gives you gifts and talents for a reason. And if you don't use them, you lose them. And so I don't know, when I started this podcast, I didn't know who it was going to touch. I didn't know who it was going to impact. But how are you ever going to know if you don't put it out there? How are you ever going to know if you don't step out on faith? How are you ever going to know if you until you stop arguing for your limitations? See, that's what I was doing. I was arguing for my limitations. But with God, all things are possible. And so I'm here now. And when I tell people that I used to hate being in front of the camera, that you couldn't have paid me to speak prior to 2013, they look at me sideways, because they say that they look at me now and they say that you just seem like a natural. It was a process, ladies and gentlemen. It was a process that got me to where I'm at now. And then I realized that once you have gotten over something, or once you have started to heal from something, you realize that your story is no longer your own. And what I mean by that is you begin to tell your story as authentic as possible, as transparent and unapologetic as possible, because you realize that somebody is where you were. Somebody right now is where you were. And if you don't talk about it, if you don't talk about what you've gone through, your experiences, your shortcomings, and the lessons that you've learned, then this ongoing cycle is going to continue to repeat itself generation after generation after generation. You got to get to the place where you stop sweeping stuff under the rug. And in order for you to truly heal, in order for generational curses to be lifted, people have to start talking. There's a reason that, God gave you a mouth, gave you a voice. Your voice matters. My voice is not for everybody. Your voice is not for everybody. But there is somebody that needs to hear your voice. There is somebody that needs to hear your story, that needs to hear your truth and what you have gone through, and how the Most High has helped you overcome every single obstacle that you have faced. And even the obstacles that you're dealing with right now. You have to be able to to talk about that, because your story is about you, but it's no longer just for you. And so what I learned from my experiences over the last year since I launched this podcast was that I thought about something that I read where the Apostle Paul was once in distress, and he despaired of life itself. And in the same letter, I think it was 2 Corinthians, in the same letter, he gave us the purpose for adversity, and that God comforts us in all of our troubles. The very reason that I was able to launch this podcast, even after all the hell that I went through in 2016, was because God was there. And when I think about it, when I think about the fact that someone that I was close to, someone that I was ride or die for, would actually question my faith in God, my relationship with God. I laugh about it now, and I speak with passion and conviction about it, because my relationship with God is the very reason why I still have not blasted them to this very day. It is the very reason. So to have somebody question my relationship with God, they must think I'm a new fool. But in reality, when people say that they know you, when people say that they trust you, that should mean that they know your heart, that they know your intent. So to have somebody question me when I'm praying, when I am seeking his face, seeking his direction, it was a slap in the face to me. And it took me a long time to accept the fact that when we go through things, when we're being elevated, out of my storm is where the motivation to elevation came from. When you start seeing that hashtag pop up, that's where it came from. It was birthed out of pain. And the problem is, people are too busy trying to play it safe, and they don't realize that there is purpose in our pain. And our pain can help birth a lot of great things. The greatness that people say they see in me, that greatness came out of pain. It came out of pain. Make no question about it. No doubt about it. It came out of pain. And I have a responsibility, and those that are speakers, those that have a gift of using their voice to impact the masses, have a responsibility to authentically tell their truth and not be ashamed of what you went through. So you have to be able to embrace it. You have to be able to own it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Otherwise, you will continue to make excuses for your limitations. You will continue to argue for them instead of making moves. So when you see make moves and make excuses, that's where that comes from. Because you have to get to a point where you get tired of making excuses. You have to get to a point where you get tired of waiting on someone to believe in you. Why don't you start believing in yourself? Why don't you start believing in the fact that what you have gone through right now, what you have gone through was not meant to kill you. It was meant to strengthen you. It was meant to grow you. And out of your pain can manifest greatness. And if you don't believe me, you're looking at a witness of it. You're looking at living proof of it. But I tell you this, as I'm about to wrap this up, on the other side of your pain is a reward. I'm going to say it again. On the other side of your pain is a reward. Think of anybody that's successful. You think they haven't had setbacks? Anyone that has went from, started from the bottom, now we're here. If you started from the bottom, that means you had setbacks. That means you had shortcomings. That means that you have been at a place where you didn't have the money that you may have now. All you had was a vision. And then over time, you were able to scale up, and you was able to attract the people that would help you push your message forward. And then you would be able to tell that message and be able to impact others. The very reason that you have the ability to turn your mess into a message is because you have not gone through what you've gone through just to simply go through what you've gone through. You are doing a disservice to those who can be positively impacted if you keep what you've gone through to yourself. And I got to a place in 2016 that I refuse to keep what I've gone through to myself any longer. And so that's when it got to a point where I decided that I'm going to stop procrastinating on something that was placed in me to do 20 years ago. And that was write my first book. And it didn't take me long. I literally wrote it. I literally wrote it in less than 50 days. From start to finish, in less than 50 days. It did not take long. Because when you're locked in, when you realize that your message trumps the mess that you have gone through to gain that message, your excuses go out the window. And you're able to press forward. And so I wanted to share that with you. And think about this. Remember, God comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others going through similar trouble. And that cannot happen unless we're willing to share our messy stories. And there is an unexplained freedom, ladies and gentlemen, and joy that comes when the worst facts about you are known and you have nothing left to hide. That is when you truly can finally help others. We are here to serve. And the best way that you can serve is by being honest and open with others. And that's by sharing your story. There is power in your story, and nobody can tell your story better than you. And so I want to thank each and every last one of you that have hopped on tonight. I'm thankful that God has allowed me to see 1 year since I've launched this podcast, and I'm just looking forward to what God is about to do next. And I'm looking forward to being able to have, special guests on and just being able to feed off of each other in this season, in this next chapter. And so if you are someone that wants to share the floor with me, let me know. And I will be honored to have you as a guest, as a special guest on this show, because there is a message. You have a message that needs to be heard, and people have poured into me and gave me the courage to launch. And then just with the level of consistency, it's helped me get to this point. Hey, Kim, thanks so much. Kim is one of the people that has poured into me. And earlier this year, I was able to be on her show, and I had never been on the radio before. And so, she has an awesome show that she does on Tuesdays entitled The Journey of a Meeting of the Minds. And if you want information, I will surely pass on her information to you, and check out her show, because she is definitely not a rookie when it comes to this. I'm a rookie when it comes to this, but I'm truly grateful for the bond that she and I have developed over the years, and to get to this point. I didn't get to this point alone, and all I can tell you is that the best is yet to come. So thank you so much. Remember, as always in life, you have two choices. You can make moves or you can make excuses, but you most certainly cannot do both. And then if you have not done so, make sure you check out my website at www.motivation2elevation.com. That's motivation2elevation.com. And then again, make sure you pre-order my brand new book. It will be available within the next 2 to 2.5 weeks. I just got word today from my publisher. The finishing touches have been laid, and Kim, you always get on me about that. You always get on me about that. I appreciate it though, and just continue to keep me encouraged. Why I do my best to encourage you as well, because that's really what it's all about. Nobody gets to their destiny alone. You don't get to your destiny alone. It's always people that's going to come along the way, that you're going to meet along the journey, to be able to push you into your destiny, to be able to push you into your greatness, and to help you unlock your greatness. And so, I'm here because of that. And so I still got work to do. But best believe, if I can get through this first year, that means I can get through anything. So with that being said, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you next Tuesday, same time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, on another edition of the Motivation to Elevation Facebook Live podcast. Peace.